In this week's episode of Studio Inter, we'll be discussing the win against Chievo. We'll be previewing the match against Napoli, this week's Inter legends Moratti, Frog and Moggi, and much, much more. Everything here on Studio Inter, only on SempreInter.com.
Ecco Perisic, 1 contro 1, gioco di gambe, guadagna il fondo, il cross, Icardi, e gol, 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 Maurito il Mamba!
Ci sono i blocchi nell'area di rigore, arriva la palla, la prende Messino! Che segna solo contro le romane, segna il gol del 3-2
per una vittoria eccezionale, eccezionale.
Bentornati to another edition of Studio Inter. I'm your host Nima Tavallaey, wishing you welcome to a show that was we were supposed to record last week, but due to wedding arrangements and other issues, we were unable to. But we're back now, and I am joined by the SempreInter.com preview writer, the very appreciated preview writer on SempreInter.com, Mr. Mohamed Nassar. How are you, Mo?
I'm great. How are you guys? Good to be back.
Good to have you back. And we are also joined by the Inter Legends writer on SempreInter.com and also soon on YouTube, Mr. Critty Smith. Welcome back, man. Haven't had you in a while.
I know, man. It feels like it's been 6 years in prison.
Yeah, we'll get to why Inter makes everyone feels like they're in prison in later on in this podcast. We're also joined by our good friend who also writes on Sempre Inter, and as well as Serpents Madonnina, and a host of other jobs because that's what a media personality does. Welcome, Mr. Will Beckman.
Good evening. When you say that we had wedding problems for last week, what you mean is you went to a wedding?
Yeah, I went to a wedding in North Wales, and I couldn't get, and it was an issue. I didn't say wedding problems. I'd say there was a problem because there were. Oh, never mind. Well, it was basically. It was just everything just didn't work.
It was
out.
A kerfuffle.
Yeah. It was a kerfuffle. Yeah, dates got mixed up.
I'm looking forward to recording the episode that we should have recorded last week. Terrible result against Udinese, but against Chievo, I'm hopeful that we can get back to winning ways.
And we are also joined by our good friend, the Chievo aficionado. He's the editor-in-chief at Marca, Marca English. He's also managing editor at Forza Italian Football. He's been on Studio Inter before. Welcome back, Mr. Dov Schiavone.
Ciao Nima, ciao guys. Pleasure as always. I've got some predictions. I think you might beat Chievo. Maybe just it'll be difficult, but you'll manage it.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll manage. Well, let's get into the whole Chievo game. I remember yesterday when you and I were messaging on WhatsApp. I asked you. I wrote you. I said I'm nervous as hell, and you said Chievo are on holiday. And about an hour later, I said, yeah, they seem to be on holiday in their own penalty area because there's parking the bus and then there's literally nesting in your penalty area, which Chievo were doing, and fair play to them. But I mean, they knew that they given everything that's happened, they probably weren't expecting anything. But I mean, if we talk about yesterday, how disappointed are you? With how Chievo played, or are you positively surprised? What are your thoughts?
They did good for 5 minutes. That was all right. I thought that, to be honest, they did not too bad defensively. You're right; they were camped in the edge of the area, but I think that was kind of what they wanted to do, is try and hit Inter on the counter attack. It's just that they're pretty crap this season, to be perfectly honest, and they can't manage it. It wasn't the worst they've played all season, I would say that, but it was kind of. It was almost as if when are Inter going to score, not if they were Inter were going to score. And obviously when the first goal went in, that was it. It was game over. And I think both teams kind of realised that as well. So it's not really disappointment, because the season's been finished since about December. It's almost Chievo been the opposite of Juve this season. Juve had the title wrapped up since about December, and Chievo have been relegated since then as well. So it's kind of, I've had a few months to digest everything and kind of realize what's happened and look to the future.
That's a good point. Speaking of, what happened this season? And I mean, I think most people are pretty much thinking of Ventura. Do you want to elaborate a little bit? What the hell was the thinking behind Ventura? And then he just walked off as well.
See, this is the thing. Like when Ventura was appointed, I thought that was a good coaching appointment. Ventura isn't a bad coach. Obviously, he had a terrible time at Italy, but what he'd done at Torino, he'd done a really good job at Torino. And people, I think, can look over the fact he's a solid Serie A coach. He's not spectacular, but he gets more out of his teams than what they're worth. And when he came in, I thought that's a good appointment. He's got the qualities to kind of get Chievo out of the mess they were in. But then obviously the truth came out after Sergio Pellissier put his post on Instagram, basically said that he didn't want to be there. So he was clearly there for money or whatever reasons. Nobody knows really. And that was kind of, I don't want to say the beginning of the end, but it just kind of compounded things even more. And you're struggling when you've got coaches who go there and after about 2 weeks they can't be bothered anymore. So it probably doesn't transmit well to the players, kind of the younger ones and the more senior ones. And then you've got not even won a game by the middle of December. It's like you're just struggling, and then that just drags the whole mentality of the team down. And you can kind of see that in some games where they would maybe try, like Inter's kind of almost a microcosm. They'll try for 10, 15 minutes. They'll not get a goal. Something will go against them. And then it's like, right, it's finished now. There's no bother. And that's kind of been what's happened in a number of games this season, where it's looked like it's going well. There'll maybe be a goal up. The other team will come back, and then they just collapse. And it's been rubbish. I'll be perfectly honest. It's not. I was hopeful at the start of the season, but Christ, it's been depressing.
Yeah, no, I agree. I can imagine. I'm going to hand you over to Mo. Do you have a question for our good friend Dov?
Yeah, sorry about that. I wanted to ask you. So now you're going down. Chievo's, as you said, has been going down since last year. What do you reckon the plan is moving forward? I mean, Chievo has been a staple of the Serie A for almost for a bit over a decade now. Does the club possess the resources, the ambitions to make a bounce straight back, or do you reckon it's going to take a bit of a long-term rebuild project for Chievo to come back consistently to the Serie A?
To be honest, I think they'll come back straight up. As much as people do rag on them, they're a well-run club. They're one of the only clubs in Serie A that make a profit, and you can read into that what you will after what happened in the summer and the 3-point deduction. But on paper, they make money. The one good thing I will say is that they've got a really good Primavera team, and they have had one for a good number of years. The problem has been that none of those Primavera prospects have made it into the first team that I can think of the top of my head. They don't really manage to break through. And I think it was maybe about 3 or 4 years ago they actually won the Primavera Cup, and none of the players came through that either. So I think that's going to be the thinking in the summer, is try and get rid of some of the old guard that are there. And then rebuild the team around you. You've seen that with Semper, who's in goals against Inter. He's 21. He's Croatian. You've got Vigneto, who he's played a couple of games basically since they've been officially relegated. And I think that's the way that they'll go. They'll start, like, Pellissier is obviously not going to be there. Sorrentino's not going to be there either. And I think a few of the kind of other ones won't be there. And they'll try and come up focusing on the youth team. And I think Di Carlo he's a coach. He said yesterday after the game in the mix zone that it's a club that he loves. He knows the club and he wants the best for it. And I think you have him staying there and then get some of the youngsters in from the Primavera, maybe a couple of veteran Serie A players, not in terms of age, but players that have played in Serie A but maybe wouldn't get a game too much, and then take them into Serie B, and then they'll come back up. But I don't think it'll be any longer than one season down there.
That's interesting. Will?
Yeah, I wanted to expand a couple of talking points that you mentioned there, Dov. I mean, a couple of strikers at opposite ends of their careers. Inter have been linked to Vignato in the last sort of few weeks and months. There was supposedly an attempt in January to get him, and there's rumours that maybe Inter will sign him and then loan him back or whatever. So do you think he's the kind of player that Inter could maybe be interested in? Do you think he'd be an interesting investment for the future? And then also just a couple of words on Pellissier, because obviously he's had an incredible career. He had an amazing standing ovation in that game at San Siro.
Oh, I got even better afterwards.
Which was quite interesting. How sad are you to see him disappear into the weird and wacky world of retirement?
On Vignato, I think he could be one that like a buy him and then loan him back for a couple of years, but I think he needs to play. I think that's a problem that kind of not just for Vignato, but for kind of young Italian players in general, is that they'll take a move to Inter or Milan or Juve or one of the bigger teams, and then they'll sit on the bench for 2-3 years, and by that time any development potential that they could have had is null and void, and they kind of just become journeyman Serie A players. So I think that he's only 18 years old. A season in Serie B where he's playing every week would be perfect, and then see what happens with them. But if Inter do make a move, I don't think it would be something where he'd come to Inter and go straight into the first team or even the Primavera. I think it'd be better for him to stay, if not at Chievo, then to another team maybe lower in Serie A. But as long as he's playing every week, I think that's the key to his development. In terms of Sergio Pellissier, he's 40 years old, so he's somewhere in twice the age of me. He obviously it was really funny because obviously at the game you had Icardi, who got taken off about 3 or 4 minutes before, who got whistled to the high heavens, and then 2 seconds later Pellissier comes on and he gets a standing ovation, which I thought was great. And then the end of the game, I don't know if you've seen this on TV, but it went over to the bottom of the Curva Sud and basically stripped. It had everything off. It only had his pants on. I don't know if he's managed to catch that, but I thought that was nice that everybody was kind of appreciative of him, and even after the game he got another ovation as well, and he kind of enjoyed the moment of his final game at the San Siro. And yeah, it's sad. He's the last bandiera. He's the last one. You've got De Rossi, obviously he's off today, and there's no other ones. They're all gone. He's the last. So it's sad. I thought he'd have another season in Serie B and take them back up, but it's not to be. But he's a nice guy and a brilliant striker as well. Not when he was 40, maybe when he was 30. But yeah, it's a sad day.
I mean, by the time next season's Serie B campaign starts, he'll be 45 because it's going to be postponed by 5 years with all these appeals and legal wrangling. So it's probably not a good idea if he stayed on for next season. Maybe Chievo could sign Icardi to replace Pellissier. We might be looking for buyers this summer.
I'm not having that. No, so you can keep it.
Oh, thanks.
All right. Critty, do you have a question for Dov?
Yeah, I was wondering. So we're at almost the 14-minute mark before Icardi finally got mentioned. I was wondering how long we would get into the show without that name being dropped. But so we've already got that crossed off the list. Yes. I do have a question. This is rather long-winded, so pardon the length of the question. But in the past few years, I've been reading some interesting articles about two leagues in particular, about the financial discrepancies between the top tier and the second flight being so unbelievably top heavy, particularly the German Bundesliga and Serie A, where the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. And when you look at like this year's German league, for example, I mean, a lot of the teams that came up went right back down. Is there a worry that Chievo going down, that they become the next Bari or Regina or Brescia or somebody like that, where there's it's just like you have all this money being distributed. It's like the top 15 to 18 teams kind of have this feel about them where they feel safe, but then like 19 and 20 seems like every single year when someone comes up, you can almost predict who 19 and 20 going to be. The third relegation team kind of seems always up for play, but everyone kind of knew, okay, Frosinone is going down, no question. Last year at Benevento, no question, going right back down. Do you have any fear of Chievo becoming one of those clubs that even if they come back up, are they going to be competitive again in Serie A?
Honestly, I think I'm not too worried. I think the one thing maybe Chievo do have over some of the other teams that do go down is they've got stability. They've had Campodelli, the president. I think he's been there since about 1984. So he's always been there. In terms of the way that the club's run, it's actually quite a well-run club. And I think, especially in Italy, having a well-run club is something that's a major advantage. And Chievo are that. Although obviously people will kind of point to the financial irregularities, if you want to say, in the summer. But even before then, the last, I think off the top of my head, like 3, 4, 5 years, they've always turned a profit. It's a minuscule profit, but it's a profit nonetheless. And I think that is an example of how the club runs itself. It doesn't spend too much to get into financial trouble, and you have issues with then more points being deducted or whatever, like some of the other clubs like Palermo and Bari and Foggia and teams like that, who are big teams in their own right as well. And I think just even in the squad, depending on who they let go and who stays, there's actually like some quality players in that squad, the likes of Schelotto. Obviously for you guys he was rubbish, but for Chievo he's a quality player. Giaccherini's another one as well. Meggiorini, Hetemai, like there's some really good players in that team that they can kind of keep them, the kind of core together and get rid of some of the crap ones. I think they can come back up, because in terms of the quality level in Serie B, there are a lot of teams that are pretty rubbish. Let's be perfectly honest. The Serie A has its own number of teams, but I think Chievo have enough quality and stability to get back up straight away. So I'm not really too worried. I think it'll be a one season in Serie B, like the last time they went down. I think, what was that, 2007 or something like that. It was one season. So
that's what I was going to ask you about. Like, what is the difference between now and then?
Oh, Christ.
I mean, in the sense that, because I feel that back then it felt like Chievo were prepared for it. They had something. Now it feels like a little bit the air has gone out of the whole Campodelli project, and maybe he's, this is maybe the time to bow out gracefully. Would you expect that?
Honestly, no. I don't think he'll ever bow. I think he'll be the president of that club until he can't be a president anymore. I think if he was going to bow, it would have bowed out way before that. Honestly, I can't remember in terms of why it was so bad. I think that this time, for me, this time it feels like it's the end of a cycle. That's probably kind of what happened last time, because that would have been the Chievo. They were the actual flying donkeys who came up and got to the Champions League and were amazing and were doing great things. And I think that was the end of the cycle. They went down to Serie B. They've come back up, and apart from maybe the last 2 years, they've been mid-table most seasons. That's and I think now you've seen the end of that cycle of Pellissier, of Dainelli, of Sorrentino. That's come to an end. Yeah. And now they need to kind of, I hope they go with the Primavera and get some of the younger players in and kind of build from there, and then have another cycle. That seems to me how it's going to work.
Agreed. Let's talk a little bit about Inter. I wanted to ask you, before the season, do you think that Inter have kind of matched the expectations you had, or in terms of what's happened on the pitch, if we leave the whole drama part aside, because no one saw that one coming. But did you?
You did.
Yeah, did I?
Yeah, you did. I remember we did a podcast, and when was it? That must have been late December, early before it started. And you said, I remember, because I was shocked that you said it.
Oh yeah, you mean on your part? Yeah. I think about the Icardi thing. Yeah, but it's because that was. But I didn't expect the nude photographs. The way that kind of escalated into whatever it has now. But no, looking at Inter's season, if Inter were to finish third, which they look like they're going to do, and qualify for the Champions League, how would you rate Inter's season?
To be honest, I think it's one that's kind of like promised so much but delivered so little. I think it was maybe you put on Twitter, where you look at Inter after they went out of the Champions League. I think they were near the top of the table. They just went out of the Champions League, and they were playing good football, and the signings were kind of blending in well, and it was all hopeful. So from there, it looked like everything was going good. And then obviously the stuff with Icardi happened, and it's been, honestly, watching them every week, or every other week at least, it's been pretty turgid. There's something's broken. and you guys will probably know better about what it is than me, but there's something not right in terms of the team and how they play. I mean, even last night against Chievo, that should have been 5-0 easily before half-time. But for whatever reason, Inter can't finish their dinner. And I think that's kind of been something that's kind of permeated almost the entire season. The players are there, but there's something wrong. And I don't think it's maybe manager-wise or kind of the ability of the players. I think it's a mentality thing.
Couldn't agree with you more. Before the season, I don't think anyone would have predicted Fabio Quagliarella winning the Capocannoniere, but it looks like he is. Or do you think he will, or do you reckon that, because there's always towards the end, there's always someone who, has a crazy day and scores 4 goals in one day. Do you think that's over? Do you think Quagliarella will get it, or do you think maybe Ronaldo will, score 5 or something?
No, I think he's got it in the bag. I mean, Zapata, he's already had his game where he scored 4 goals in one game. He's not doing that again, and he's 4 goals behind him. And Ronaldo's 5 goals behind. I think that with 2 games to go, I think he's got it in the bag. And the one interesting thing, Sampdoria play Juve on the last game of the season. So if Ronaldo gets a couple of goals against Atalanta at the weekend, you could have the Capocannoniere playoff between those two. That would make it that game a little bit interesting, because other than that, it's a dead rubber.
It absolutely is. Thank you so much for coming on, Dov. I hope I don't mean this in a bad way, but I absolutely hate that stadium. That that we've spoken about it. It is where happiness goes to die, and I like Chievo, but I just wish they'd get a new stadium. Otherwise, than that.
Do you know how many away fans that I managed to see last night?
No.
2. And that was outside the game as well. Like, looking at where the away fans sit, I couldn't see anybody. I was like, Christ, they can't even get anybody to come from Verona, which is only like a couple of hours away on a Monday night. There you go.
So people want to follow you on Twitter. What's your handle in that? All that jazz?
Twitter is at Dov Schiavone. You can follow Forza Time Football at Serie A FFC, and I've got a Facebook thing as well. So do bits in there, but I'm not the best social media person. So,
no, all right, nice one, Dov. Thanks for coming on.
Pleasure, guys. Thank you.
Ciao. Right.
There's nothing that screams Serie A more than 2 men in their mid-30s fighting it out to be top scorer. That's what Sampdoria Juventus would be at the end of the season.
Yeah, it literally would, wouldn't it? It really is Serie A. But I mean, Quagliarella this season has been wow, what a season he's had. I mean, if he could finish on 30 goals, talk about a Di Natale season for him.
Well, he's always been a scorer of great goals, not a great scorer of goals.
No,
so,
exactly.
Anyway, Inter. Let's talk about Inter.
Let's talk about the Chievo match. I was we've joked a little bit about the whole crosses and inshallah thing that Inter are doing, but yesterday it was corners and inshallah on steroids. 13 corners, not a single one was even a half chance of a goal. This is what annoyed me the most. This incredible notion that Inter, it seems it's not just set pieces. It's just generally this crossing thing. They can't cross the ball. They need players who can cross the ball. And I was going absolutely mad at that. And Cedric, who's supposedly a good crosser, Brozovic, who's good for Croatia. What is it about Inter that gets players to not be able to cross decent balls? Will?
There's I don't know, maybe Maicon's cursed that side of the pitch when he left. Some kind of Bela Gutmann style hex on our fullback. No, I don't know. I think it just marks out a lack of ideas, and that's really, that's the problem that's befallen this team for the last 4 years. There's no attacking structure. The defense is lovely, and that's set up for the next few years. But when we're going forward, things are going to have to be sort of profoundly revamped in the summer. Otherwise, we're going to be watching the same turgid 2-0 wins against other smaller teams next season. I can't give you a specific answer on the crosses.
No, I understand.
It's just a thing we do, But I think last night was if we were saying it that last night was a microcosm of Chievo season, which is what Dov said. I think it's probably a microcosm of our season as well. And I'm going to go back to the analogy that I mentioned on a couple of pods ago, Fulvio said it's like a hospital soup this season. You know, it's fed you, but it didn't taste of anything. And that was last night. You know, we got the points, but it was just the same old stodgy team that has not got much future. So I don't have much to say about the game, really.
Well, I mean, if it's true what Di Marzio and everyone has reported today, that Antonio Conte has accepted Inter's offer and that he's no longer waiting, or he's not even open to getting a call from Max Allegri, from Agnelli to replace Max Allegri at Juve. He's basically decided that he's going to Inter. There's been talk of Danilo from Man City, and there's even been talk of Matteo Darmian. Now, is that the answer to break Maicon's curse, Mo? Or what do you think?
No, I don't think Matteo Darmian will break anybody's curse, Nima. Look, honestly,
but Danilo as well.
No, no. Look, I was thinking about it yesterday. I honestly don't think that Cedric put in a bad performance, especially in the crossing department. He did all right. I think yesterday's problem was attacking wise was twofold, and it was Icardi and Nainggolan. Icardi was out of position at almost every attacking instant. He wasn't making the right runs. He cut back when he was supposed to follow through. He'd go to the far post when the cross was coming at the near post. He was just off yesterday. And Raja yesterday, I don't know, I can't remember when his first touch on the ball was. I think he touched the ball for the first time somewhere around the 30th minute. So I think when these two guys aren't present in the box, what can you expect from the rest of the players? Crossing and the corners thing, I'm with you 100%. You can't have 13 corners and not have a single header on target or a single shot on target developing from them. I mean, statistically, you need at least, 3 scoring opportunities per 6 corners, and 1 out of 2, and then maybe 1 out of 6 goes in. But to waste 13 scoring opportunities like that was just ridiculous. But the crossing and inshallah business, I don't know. I'm lost to really criticize the team tactically or technically at this point in the season. Right now, I think everyone's hobbling to the finish line, and we all know what needs to be done, and the guys got it done yesterday. And considering all the noise that's surrounding Conte and Spalletti and the players and Icardi and this and that, and I think we can't really expect more from these guys. They got the 3 points in the bag, and we can't really discuss about performance and tactics too much, or look into it too deeply at this very weird stage in the season.
Okay, that's interesting. No, it has been a weird season, and it's a weird stage of the season. And after the game, Luciano Spalletti was asked if he seemed like he was a little bit resigned to the fact, and he went on a 10-minute rant threatening to pretty much punch the journalist who asked him that, saying that he looks a bit. What was it, Will? What was it he said he looked like? Like his nose.
Questo musino un po' bianchino, un po' smunto. Hai qualche problema. He said he had sort of a white, sort of emaciated nose, I think.
Yeah.
That's what he was saying. You look like you're not, like you don't feel very well. Are you okay?
Yeah, you don't look like you're feeling well.
I'm not the one who's resigned here,
Yeah, you're the one who looks resigned. You're the one with the problem. Stop, you're offending me. I mean, to me, when you win and you react that way, I mean, the man knows he's on his way out. And to be honest, I thought Spalletti was great the first season. I think this season he's created so much trouble. He's been part of the problem as opposed to part of the solution, and that's why he's leaving. He got himself sacked. I honestly think that if he had handled that whole situation better and not been so incredibly stubborn and
permaloso, he's really prickly.
Yeah, he's very prickly, and he's also this picking a fight business and rocking the boat. I mean, the whole thing when he says that Icardi's not Ronaldo and Messi, and then 3 days later he has to walk it back. This is something that he's created. That's why I think he got sacked, because otherwise I think he'd be on for another for at least another season. But having said that, it is. I do understand. I think he did raise a very interesting point, and I want to hear what you think about that, Kriti. He said that for the past 9 years, the media has been destabilizing and creating turbulence at Inter, which is kind of what Marotta also said. And Marotta said that we've not been destabilized, but we've been there's this nonsense. These rumors create turbulence. As always, Spalletti doesn't listen to what anyone says, but instead goes out and throws a temper tantrum and says that, I defend myself and I defend Inter. Inter fans should defend Inter as well because they've been doing this to Inter. If Inter want to choose another coach, that's fine. But for every day for 3 months, they've been writing the same thing over and over and over again, and they've received confirmation from other people, from people within the club that it's not going to happen. So to this point, they don't treat Inter the same way, etc., etc. I'm curious to hear your thoughts, Kriti. What do you make of all that?
Sounds like a very Donald Trump thing to say. So why doesn't the media destabilize Juve or Napoli or anyone else for that matter? So the media's got a target on Inter's back, and they hate us, and they're just going to create rumors. The Inter has always, in my lifetime, has always when it's rained outside, they've always been their own worst enemy, and it's always been self-inflicted gunshot wounds. It's never been the media or some spy or Eric Snowden or Clinton emails. It's been Inter. It's been the club. It's been the players. It's been the coaches. It's been the sporting directors. Whoever. I'm not saying specifically those titles, but I'm saying it's always been someone within the club. I've never known. This almost like Soviet paranoia, the media is out to get us. I mean, that's ridiculous. I don't buy that for a second. I don't think that the media does anything except they've probably honed in on Inter now because where there's smoke, there's always fire, and Inter there seems to be always this perpetual cloud of smoke over the club. And, you started talking about this, or whoever started talking about it in December or January about Icardi, and every single thing became to be true. Yeah. Everything.
I was afraid of it.
Thing. There wasn't a single lie. There wasn't a single untruth about Icardi. He and his wife created this entire thing. And yes, I agree with you. Spalletti could have handled it better. He handled it very poorly at times, but everything that the Icardis did turned out to be true. How does the media not sink their teeth into that? That's liquid gold. I mean, you don't see Ronaldo. If they had a story like that on Ronaldo, it would be reported just as heavily, probably more so, because I can tell you this. This is a sad thing. If I go around in the United States with an Icardi jersey, most people have no idea who that is. They literally have no clue who that is. But if you have a number 7 Juventus kit on, man, everybody knows who that is. Everybody knows who that is. So if the media had a story on Ronaldo or on somebody at top clubs like Juve or Barca or Real Madrid or somebody like that, they would report it just as much. But Inter always have this perpetual rain cloud over the club. It seems. When times are down, obviously there's the whole glory period, from 10, 15 years ago where that wasn't the case. But I mean, ever since all the Icardi drama and the stuff from, before 2005, whenever there was any kind of drama or whatever, it was always self-inflicted. And of course the media is going to report on it. And now they just look for stories. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like if you have a gold mine that you can go to and there's always treasure there, you're going to keep going back to it. Well, Inter supplies an abundance of juicy stories that, Gazzetta or whoever can report on. And so Spalletti is, at this point, like you said, he's on his way out. At this point, you can just D-Generation X crotch chop everyone on your way out from the podium because you don't care, brother. You can just give him the old bird and flip out, and that's fine. I mean, you have nothing to lose at this point. But no, Inter's always been their own worst enemy when it came to this stuff. And until we get rid of this, and I think, like Marotta could be the answer, hopefully here. But, it's like we were talking about before with the Maicon curse. I mean, that's a curse too. I mean, it's like every single person that comes to Inter all of a sudden gets worse at everything they do. Like their ability.
Some people call it the D'Ambrosio curse because we've signed fullbacks for the past decade, and D'Ambrosio is still the starting one.
Yeah,
exactly. And would it surprise anyone if he was next season as well? Like, you know what I mean?
This has got to be.
But
This has got to be one second. This has got to be the most frustrating third place team of all time because I'm sitting here. The games come on here most of the time, noon or mid-afternoon in the United States. I literally decided that I'm going to go mow the lawn because it's more entertaining than watching them. And that's true.
I think it's a toss-up. It's a toss-up between Inter and Maurizio Sarri's Chelsea for that. I think they're both the same.
Yeah. I mean,
that's misfortune of following both of them.
Mo, I want to hear what Mo thinks. Mo, you want to say something?
Yeah, no, I want to say a couple of things. The first is, look, I am the first person to speak about speaking against this. Victimization attitude. Oh, woe is me, the world is against me, blah, blah, blah. But you can't deny that Inter is reported on in the Italian press completely differently to Milan and Juve. I mean, just off the top of my head, the one headline in Gazzetta, I remember it was Mancini, tutto ok, mister? Remember that? Well, tutto bene, mister?
Yeah.
After like 2 losses or something, like come the frick on, you know. So I mean, and we're gonna get to my Moratti of the week later on, but there's no denying the fact that the Italian media reports on Inter the same story that might occur or break in Milan or in Juve or in Napoli or in Roma is reported on when it breaks in Inter with a completely different spin and bias. That's I think no two people who are objective and follow Italian sports media can really argue too much. The reasons behind it, maybe because Inter has, like you say, there's been smoke over the club for a long time. We shoot ourselves in the foot. It's a compounding of years of incompetence, whatever that may be. But the result is, or the conclusion is that at this point in time, stories are reported on Inter in a manner that's different to how they might be reported on the same story for other clubs. The other thing I really wanted to touch back on is really, I think we're putting too much emphasis on this right back situation. Maicon was probably the best right back. It was a toss up between him and Dani Alves at that time. We were lucky to have the best right back in the world, but most clubs don't have an amazing right back.
Will, do you have something you want to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I think Cruddy does make a really good point about how, when you find treasure, you keep going and you keep mining there. And I think one thing that frustrates me about Inter is that they're always a very leaky club. If these rumors about Conte and about the contacts that have been going on with Conte and the rumors about rifts in the dressing room have come out, then someone has leaked them. Someone has given those stories to a contact. The one I have in mind at the moment is the story about what happened before the Lazio game when Spalletti said, "Mauro, do you have something to say?" And he said, "No, I think I've already done everything." And he said, "Okay then." And then afterwards he was left out. Those are really specific details that someone must have passed on, because you can't sort of fabricate that. That's quite a damaging thing to have come out, and that's just something that's been happening for a long time. I find that very frustrating. And if from a journalistic point of view, Inter do give you great stories. So, and also compared to Milan and Juventus, but certainly compared to Roma and Napoli and Lazio and whoever else, Inter are a bigger club. They're going to get reported on more. More people are interested in Inter, particularly if they're people who read the Gazzetta, which is a Milan-based paper. They have to go big on these things. So, if they didn't do it, I think you'd have to ask questions of the editorial direction of the paper. Because
Agreed.
These are.
But I gotta say, I agree with you. But what Mo was talking about, and this is something that was very prevalent back. I'm kind of in the middle here, because what Mo talks about, it was true. I mean, back, the destabilization of how if Inter did something, okay, Inter is a perpetual screw up. Okay, they can always make, they're the only team in Italy who can literally snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. There's no doubt about that. Pazza Inter, all that. But at the same time, Mo, I mean, growing up, the way the media, the way they created problems. If Juve or Milan lost 2 games, it wouldn't be an issue. But as soon as Inter did, it became a big issue. I mean, Mourinho's famous intellectual prostitution speech was just about that, about how Milan is owned by Mediaset, or the same owner who owned Mediaset, who owns a bunch of channels in Italy, also owned Milan with Berlusconi. He had Juventus, etc. That's what he was. That's the stuff he was talking about back then, and how that was very, very prevalent. How Inter were unfairly treated in how things were presented. Personally, I think that we're past that stage now. The things that have been going on this season, the reporting that has been going on this season has been, if anything, it's been in complete, it has completely been in exponential to the madness, the insanity that started on Christmas Day with Raja Nainggolan sending out this WhatsApp message that he basically thinks all Inter fans are idiots. He wants to go back to Rome. And then every single day from then on, it has been one mind-boggling insanity after another. And the media has been, it's their job to report it, like you said, Will. If they don't, they're not doing their jobs properly. But I do definitely understand what Mo's talking about, because he's referring to a period which is most of my and Mo's period as we've been alive and following Inter, of how the media has really targeted Inter out, and this was especially so during the Moratti years. So I think there's, I think that both of those things are true. Without.
Nima, if I can say one more thing.
Go through it.
Okay, so what you just said is I agree with 100%. Nainggolan saying this. So let me ask you this: when is Inter going to make the move to stop bringing in people that say stupid things like this? These characters who draw attention. You know why they ask, like, they ask Donald Trump questions. The reason is because it's usually 99% stupid things that people laugh at, and it's entertaining. It's funny because it's stupid, and that's why you keep asking him. If he was dull and boring, they wouldn't talk to him. Yeah. He's entertaining in a weird, stupid way. So of course, when you have like, hey, let's go talk to Nainggolan, let's go talk to, Icardi's got some goal for us. I mean, you know that the media has a target on Inter's back, and yet we seemingly sign always 1 or 2 players eventually that are going to give them the media and the reporters exactly what they want. They want to report on the tension and the struggle in the locker room and the division within the players, and we delivered that to them time and time again. So of course, there's a lot of what most said. Everyone here is saying truthful things, but it's like, so when is Inter going to change that to where the media says, you know what? They're a successful, boring club like Juve. There's nothing to report here except they win a lot. When is that going to happen to where Inter is just a normal, successful club as opposed to this complete and utter?
I don't think it'll ever happen. That's part of the club's DNA. This
don't hold your breath, man.
So then we can expect this. It should be something that we're all. I mean, I'm used to it by now. I know the 4 of us here should be. I mean, it's just it comes part of being a supporter of this club.
Absolutely, and I mean Inter, absolutely, but it is part of it, but it has become better. I mean, under Suning and with Marotta, that's why I support them, because I'm exhausted. Okay, I'm mentally drained. This, these past 4 or 5 months, like covering this team daily on a daily basis for the past 4 months, it felt like 12 years. I'm drained. It's been one insane thing after another, and I've never been so tired as I was in start of April. I was counting the days for the season to end, and not because I was not because Inter had nothing to play for. Inter actually had things to play for, but it was just because what now? I mean, we have had everything that you have on a cheesy, bad soap opera or a daytime or a reality TV show. We have had everything. We have had all of it. We've had nudity. We've had nude shocks. We've had, some conversations of people telling what they think about each other and in not so, in endearing terms. We've had someone's wife cry on TV every week for 12 weeks. We've had a club captain be stripped of his captaincy. Then he decided to fake a knee injury. Just let that sink in. And because he was stripped of his captaincy, and all the mess with the dressing room and all the other things, and then you have, and once all that was resolved, you have a coach who is insane, who decided to make it worse because his ego was in question, and then you have, all of this has been brewing at one football club for 4.5 months. So it's been draining, and at the end of the day, this is not during Moratti's time. This is the kind of thing you might have expected then. This is during Suning, who are very sensible, and with Marotta. I personally think that these things will never go away because it's Inter. It's just Inter. But I think they'll be heavily reduced. And let's be honest that Marotta didn't buy Nainggolan. Marotta never bought Nainggolan in his career. He never got him to Juve at when Conte was there. He's never signed him. I think the characters you're looking for, those are the players. Those are the type of signings we're going to make in the future. I think Inter are going to be a little bit boring, and I think that's a little bit sad. I will miss it.
When it was quiet though. When it was quiet from 2006 to 2010, 2012 even. Look at the players that were on the squad.
It wasn't quiet, dude. You had Mourinho going out frying everyone under the.
I was gonna say
Ibrahimovic.
Zero titoli.
Yeah, and also before that, you had an Ibrahimovic and Vieira and Materazzi. Balotelli, come on! I know.
Balotelli burning socks in the dressing room.
let me say this. Then. Let me say this. You're right. It's never been quiet. But think about you had the Zanettis, you had the Walter Samuels, who we're going to talk about in a little bit. You had the Militos, you had some leaders in the locker room.
That's the thing. You had leaders, but Inter has lacked.
That's what I meant by that. Yeah. No, it's never been quiet, but it was quieter.
Yeah. No, it was always chaos. But the difference was that you had a good, like you said, you had leaders and you had a roster of players that didn't let that affect the pitch, and you had a fantastic coach who could deflect all of that and all that stuff. So I don't think it'll ever be quiet. And I think that's a mistake. I mean, if Suning and Marotta think they're going to bring Juve into Inter, it's never going to work. Because that's not the DNA of this club. It's controlled madness. When it's working, it's controlled insanity. When it's not working, it's what we've had for the past 5 months: utter chaos and utter insanity.
We all need a long lie down.
I'm going to enjoy this summer so much.
Everyone. Grab the nearest Lilo and jump into the sea and just sit there for a month.
Yeah, I mean,
Nima Icardi's going to have to send you an apology Hallmark card.
No, he can start by putting his clothes on. That's all the apology I need. Right. We do play Napoli this Sunday night in a game where Inter can actually afford to lose, but I prefer if they didn't. Napoli have nothing to play for. And Napoli will probably want to beat Inter, so I think we're going to end up in a rather uneventful 1-1 draw. That's kind of my feeling on this. There's nothing's going to happen. And from what I've understood, De Laurentiis is once again on the warpath with his own fans because they don't like that he's raised the prices, and he's too pissed off that they don't appreciate him. So everything is normal in Naples. They're already finished second. Will, just quickly, what are you expecting from this game? Do you think Inter will win, lose? Give me a prediction.
I'm because of the way we are. I'm less nervous than I was for the Chievo game because this is the kind of game where something can happen. I would very much like to win this game because that means that we don't go to the last week game of the season with something still in the air in terms of Champions League qualification. If we can just get it done before the last day madness, that would be lovely. I think it's within our capabilities. Brozovic will be back. Lautaro will be back. So I hope that's the case. Napoli have nothing to play for. It's been so long since we won in Naples. I feel like now's the time to do it. It would be lovely if we could get rid of this 22-year hex. It's going to be tough. It's going to be a very tense and nervy weekend. I just hope that by the end of it, we've got 69 points and the top four is done because Empoli might not be safe in that. They might not be relegated yet. They might need a result in the last week. So let's just avoid all of that, please. And
yes. which you know that we won't. But okay, great.
No, I know everything I'm saying is absolute nonsense. We're going to go to the last game. We're going to need a draw, and we'll need a last-minute equaliser, or we'll have Empoli hit the post in the last minute, and it's going to be horrible. But at least I'm going to pretend that it's possible that the opposite will happen.
I love how Will is like la 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 la. Right, Mo, where are you?
I'm standing behind the fact that when Pellissier came onto the pitch, we all saw the equalizer coming, and it didn't.
Yeah.
So I'm riding that wave of luck all the way down to Naples, and I think we're going to come back home with the 3 points.
Oh, really? Do you think?
Time?
Yeah.
It's time.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's time.
Do you want predictions from us, or should we just say?
I want predictions.
Okay. Nainggolan, Vecino, Mertens, 2-1.
Okay.
Good afternoon.
Mo. It's an evening game.
I think it's a 2-1. I think it's.
Okay.
I think it's.
Mo.
I think it's 2-1, but I think it's the 1-1 that you predicted, Nima. But then someone sneaks a cheeky goal right at the end, and it can't be anyone but Vecino, like Will just said. So whoever scores the first goal, Vecino is going to score the second and bag the winner.
Critty.
Yeah, I don't feel like it would. The theme of the show, I don't feel like it would be really Inter unless we took it to the last day, would it?
No, would not.
Like we just should. I mean, it just feels right to take it to the last day. And of course, against the team that probably need the points to stay up.
I just love it.
We can't stop it. We can't stop it from happening. So let's not spend the next 5 days worrying about it. Let's spend the next 5 days pretending that it will all be fine, and then we'll only have 1 day of angst this week, which will be Sunday when the game actually happens. Just let me have this peaceful few weeks.
Will is the youngest guy on here, and he's literally sounding like he's been an Inter fan for 40 years. Like, that's the kind of lies one tells oneself.
2018-19 is never gonna finish.
It's not.
It's just gonna keep.
Hell. My idea of hell is a season, the 2018-2019 season, where it's just new things. It's a constant tiki-taka show with Wanda and Cassano arguing. That's hell. Right. Okay. Let's move on to.
You didn't hear my prediction.
Oh, sorry. Go.
In a funny way, we have truly been the anti-Juve this season, have we not? My prediction is it's going to be a 1-1 draw. Inter pick up 1 point. It'll be Perisic and Mertens with two goals that cross each other out.
I second that. That's actually exactly what I think it is. It will be the only difference is I think Insigne will score for Napoli, and I think Raja will score for Inter. So 1-1. Right. Let's move on to the part of the show where we walk down memory lane and pay tribute to a great Inter manager or player worthy of being labeled Inter Legends. Presented by Mr. Critty Smith.
Non è un personaggio che può essere sostituito, perché era un personaggio assolutamente unico. Il fatto che abbia sempre pensato e avuto nel cuore due colori, il nero e l'azzurro.
Okay, gentlemen, so this week's Inter legend is a 10-year veteran of the club, one of the greatest defenders when he played. And so this is going to get kind of shaky here, because in those 10 years, he only averaged 16.9 appearances per season. He was injured or off the pitch a lot. Mr. Walter Samuel, Argentina is one of Argentina's greatest exports as far as the back four. Two performances that are legendary, in my opinion, are the Barca Champions League semifinal match in 2010, is following that up with the Bayern Munich final in 2010, which clinched the treble for Inter that season. So Walter Samuel, when he played, he was just a man amongst boys as far as, leading that back line. The problem is that if you look at his overall seasons, there were seasons where he played 10 matches, 12 matches, 18 matches total. So you almost get the feeling that if you had a player that was at Inter for, say, 4 or 5 seasons, and he put that many, if you take the average of the appearances per season, you would say, well, that's kind of not a large enough sample size to be dubbed an Inter legend. I think a lot of the Inter legend comes from the fact that he was a part of the treble winning side won multiple Scudetti, obviously won the Coppa Italia as well, and was over 50 caps for his native Argentina, in addition to the fact that he played for 10 seasons, as I said, but in those 10 seasons, he never played 30 games one time for Inter in the league, the highest being 28. So I have mixed emotions with it. I feel like the longevity definitely gets him there. It's more like a, you were here long enough and you did enough good things in the time when you did play, because when he was on the pitch, make no mistake about it, he was the alpha male. He was, like I said, a man amongst boys. Absolutely world-class defender and someone you wanted in your dressing room, because he was a part of the reason why, as you said, Nima, earlier, that organized chaos worked so well for those 5 seasons. But Nima, I'm going to start with you, get your opinion and your take on Walter Samuel as far as Inter legends, and take into account, all the missed time, because that does play into it a good bit, I feel like.
For me, the reason why I think he's an Inter legend is, the fact that he only lost one single derby. He won every single derby he played in, except for the last one. And that, to me, kind of epitomizes him. He was hard as nails in defense. When he decided to shut the game down and not let anyone past him, whether it's Ibrahimovic or Shevchenko or whoever it was, they didn't get past him. And I think he was such a fantastic central defender, one of the best Inter have had in modern times. And yes, the fitness issue was a problem, but at that time, Inter had really good defenders. You had Cordoba, you had Materazzi, Lucio. So therefore, they could, Mourinho and Mancini, they had the luxury of rotating them, and so that it didn't really matter which one they played, because they were all of such good quality that they all kind of complemented each other. But for me, his attitude and leadership on the pitch, his ability to give that extra when it really mattered in the big games, especially against Milan. He tormented them. One loss, that was his last derby, which we can blame on Uncle Mazzarri. Losing that game, but no, for me, he is not just because of the treble, but the fact that he came from Real Madrid after having a difficult season there, and then just got into Inter's Mancini, and then just really took off. He lifted the team.
Will, what about you? What are your thoughts on Samuel?
He's a dying breed, isn't he? That kind of defender doesn't really get produced anymore. No, I don't think there's any question. To be honest, anyone who was in that squad for the tripletta, you have to have done something pretty seriously wrong to not be considered Inter legend for the importance of that. And he was one of the. I think more than anything, he was someone that got the fans going. The people still talk about him. Whenever we have a good defender, he's immediately compared to Samuel. So I think that tells you a lot about his mythical status amongst journalists and amongst supporters. But I think Nima's got it right with the sort of his ability to rise to the occasion. Those are the players that you want in your team. And I've just a couple of minutes ago I saw a video on social media of him scoring the last minute winner in a 4-3 win against Siena under Mourinho. And taking his shirt off and screaming and running to the corner flag. That's what he was. He was just sort of charisma. So I think it's a no-brainer, to be honest. I don't think I can't imagine. He'd be in contention to get into a best Inter 11 ever. At least for the last 30 years. So I don't think there's any question.
Absolutely.
Mo, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree with everything said. Especially what Will said. You'd be very hard pressed to not have a very special place in your heart for any of the tripletta winners. And I think, like Nima also mentioned, in an era where there was a plethora of fantastic central defenders, and despite Samuel playing, sporadically, he's probably been the standout guy in that decade or so, and just it speaks volumes of what his output was on the field. So I completely agree. This guy will always have a very special place in my heart.
So Nima, if you would talk about ranking him among Inter defenders, I mean, where do you place him? Would you put him in your top 5 all time?
Wow, Inter have had some fantastic central defenders. So I tend to find it really difficult to like put them all into. You have to. I divide like the football into 4 or 5 different eras. I think of the past 30 years, no doubt about it, he is the best. He's the best central defender we've had of the past 20, 30 years. I think he's better. He was better than, if you consider Bergomi a right back or a central defender, fair enough. Riccardo Ferri is my second there of the past 20, 30 years. But no, I mean, I can't imagine, I can't remember a central defender that was so intelligent with the ball at his feet, yet so difficult to pass, and he was a beast in the air. He was a complete central defender, and I for me, he's the best of the past 20, 30 years.
I can't disagree with that. Anyone else have anything to say on Mr. Samuel, or are we good for the Inter Legends for this week?
I think we're good.
No other business, Your Honor.
No other business, actually. The prosecution rests. Right. Thank you for that, Criti. Let's move on to the part of the show where we pay tribute, rip the piss out of, and criticize someone or something heavily in the world of football, starting with the something positive, the Moratti of the week, which will be presented by Mr. Mo Nassar.
He works a lot, he's intelligent, and he surprises people sometimes with his ideas. Not easy to find one person of these qualities.
So my Moratti of the week is again a nod to the amazing home support at the Meazza. Monday night game against a relegated team, 58,000 supporters. The club passed 1 million home supporter mark yesterday as well. And touching back on what we've spoken about in the most incredible, like ridiculous, acid trip of the season, and still the support is the strongest home support in the country. So yeah, I mean, the Moratti of the week has to be the great home support that stands behind the club, regardless of the madness that happens off the pitch. If only we can get the Curva Nord to
behave like Homo sapiens.
Yeah, to behave exactly, behave like fully evolved Homo sapiens.
Homo sapiens, yeah.
That wouldn't be too bad either. But that aside, the 1 million supporters with one game to go. I think we're number 7 in Europe in terms of home support. It's amazing. It's amazing. We talk about all the nonsense that happens off the field and everything, and yet this is what makes Inter such a big club. This amazing. I mean, it's only a big club because of the supporters, nothing else. And
exactly,
it's an ode to them.
Absolutely. Let's move on to something slightly more comical. The frog of the week, which will be presented by Mr. Will Beckman.
È clamoroso! Autogol di Ranocchia!
This week's frog is Mike Dean because he deserves it. Mike Dean is an entertaining character at the best of times. He has gained a reputation amongst Premier League fans over the last 10, 15 years for being very flamboyant with the way he uses his limbs on a football pitch. He's got a very flamboyant way of giving a penalty and a bit of a character anyway. But anyway, he made people laugh in a different way this week, because obviously in Italy we spend a lot of our time trying to decide which referees support which football teams, because we have a lot of suspicions along those lines. But there can be no doubt after Monday night's League 2 playoff between Tranmere and Forest Green who Mike Dean supports, because at the full-time whistle, Mike Dean was pictured by Sky Sports cameras celebrating like the nuttiest of the ultras in the Tranmere away section after they reached the playoff final. And I just wonder what the reaction would have been if that had happened in Italy. You saw Gianluca Rocchi at San Benedettese against Feral Pisalo celebrating like like a true sort of like a true ultra. I just wonder, we'd never have heard the end of it, but because it's in England, I think we can afford to laugh about it. It is astonishing, the way he's just not dressed as a referee, which first of all is strange because we always see him dressed in his refereeing kit, but it's just the manic expression on his face as he's unleashing all his joy for his side reaching the playoff final. It was quite something to behold, and I feel happy that he feels like he can express that. He's really shared his soul with us, and I thank him for that.
Mike Dean, I think, is actually one of the people who could replace Ranocchia's name in this award, because he could be the Mike Dean of the week because he's such a character. He's absolutely out there. So no, I think that was brilliant. I couldn't believe it when I saw it, and that was hilarious to watch. Nice one. Right, let's move on to something much more negative, the Moggi of the week, which I'll be presenting myself. This week's Moggi cannot be anyone else other than the Serie A for their pathetic way of handling the racist chanting aimed at Moise Keane by the Cagliari supporters away when Juve played Cagliari. They didn't do anything for a month, and today they released their investigation, and they concluded that Cagliari will face no punishment because the chant was, and this is an actual quote, an objectively limited relevance. Their basic argument here is that objectively the monkey chanting was limited in its scope to Keane as a person and not because of the color of his skin, which is, I've heard, when I was studying law at university, we said that there was judicial interpretation and there was judicial creativity, and then there's pulling stuff out your rectum. This is straight up out the backside stuff. This is once again evidence that the problem in Italy is not the fans, it's not the supporters. The problem is the people in charge. They do not want to do anything. If Fulvio was here, he'd talk about how Italians have turned sweeping the crap under the rug into an art form. This is once again that. They've basically been counting on that. Well, if once everything calms down, a month passes, we'll just not do anything and everyone's happy. Now they've done that, and everyone is not just not happy. Everyone is actually pretty angry, and deservedly so. And as long as you have the same people that have been in charge for the past 30, 40 years, nothing will change. It's utterly absurd, and it's disgusting and unacceptable.
Here,
right.
Here.
Right. I'd like to thank Dov Schiavone and Critty for joining us this week, and I'd also like to thank you, Will.
Thank you very much. Just remember, it's going to be fine. 3 points. Enjoy your weeks. You won't enjoy Sunday.
I want to thank Mo as well.
Yeah, thank you. Always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure. And until next week, this is Nima Tavallaey wishing you all a good week, 3 points, and sempre e solo Forza Inter. Forza Inter,